in Naihanchi, the first motion is, you cross your legs. And the thing about crossing your legs is that everyone goes, oh, I'm going to fight this way? Well, one of the key things to understand is that anytime you turn your head sideways, it doesn't mean that the attack is coming from the side or even that you move sideways. It means that your opponent's in front of you and you need to get from this position somehow to this position relative to your opponent, which means I have to go from here to here. And that changes everything. I want you to stand over here so we can see this on the camera. So we'll start with something. This is a real basic and kind of easy application, cross-hand wrist grab. Now what I'm going to do is I bring my hand up like this. This is sort of the initial motion. I bring my hand up, and I'm going to trap his hands, and I'm going to make this stepping motion this way. And see where he is? And now from here, and what that means is I can't actually go into this move because there's nothing there for me. What I have to do is I have to jump ahead to that open hand palm strike. So that's the great thing about Naihanchi. Any kata, you don't have to actually follow in sequence. You can jump around and pull moves from all over the place. So again, what I do is it's this right here. It's this action. This allows me to get around his arm really easily. In fact, he can grab me with two hands, and he can be very strong, and I can still make this happen. I don't know if you can see this, but I have locked up against his leg. I always lock up against his leg. Oh, there's the Gedan-Brai strike, the down strike. There's palm strike. Taking that same kind of concept, maybe the guy is coming at me, he's pushing. Whoa! This allows me to get out of the way of the push. Then I step behind him this way. And this motion outward becomes just a real simple throw. Very low grade, kind of nothing too intense, nothing too hard. If, on the other hand, what he's done is he's grabbed me here, and he's going to punch me with that hand. Oh, crap. So what I need to do is I need to guard myself. That's this movement right here. But watch my footwork. This action, what this does is this allows me to move, to roll, so to speak, outside this arm. But I catch his foot in the process. I get to suppress him very easily. And now when I step in and I do this motion, that's not going to be my hand. I'm going to be right here, and this is going to be my upper arm and elbow coming into the back of his head, this way. Okay? From here, I'll just wrap it quick. And it's difficult for you to see where I'm going. But this is just to set up for this open hand shot. I'm just trying to get under there with that. The good news is if you hit him hard enough with this, he'll just fall over and you don't really have to go on beyond there. Also, I want to mention something else. Sometimes a guy will grab you. And they pull you in real close. I mean, we're like here. So the first thing I did was I stepped on his foot. And now I'm just going to take this hand, and I'm going to lay this hand on his face, like that. Notice I've turned his head, I've laid this hand on his face, and I take this hand. And the thing is, I don't have to aim. Once I put my hand on his face, I'm going to hit you again with this. Then, it's not like I have to go anywhere. I just smack my own hand, and he takes the impact. And this is, again, one of those great sort of low-grade techniques. Another thing I can do, he grabs me with two hands. I bring my hands in this way. This kind of stretches him down, and what I'm doing is coming right under the corner of his jaw. And I push up like that. That's this motion. Come here, up. Now, that stretches out this right here, which is related to that, so I can strike down afterwards, which is the second half of that motion. Then I also want to mention this first step. One of the real common applications that is practiced is a guy pushes, we take the hand and we trap this way, and what I'm going to do is lift this little finger right here. And that's the key thing, to lift that little finger. I can do it with the top hand or I can do it with the bottom hand. But I want to lift his little finger and push it behind his ring finger. And then, with it trapped to my body, and that's the key thing, it has to be trapped against my body, I'm going to cross step. So the hand comes on. Okay, I'm going to use my thumb now, lifting his little finger, locking it in, trapping it to my body, and I just cross step. Down he goes. Now, obviously from here, the form goes on to here, but I'm going to choose as my next move, see, see, there's a foot, that's something there for me to stand on, and I can do Gedan-Brai, downward strike. But it begins with this simple action. The first thing, I want to catch, whoa, control, manipulate, cross step to give me what I'm after. Now, if you're, a lot of people, they go, oh, well, you know, but what about this block? Isn't this a block? No, it's not a block. But if you really need that, if you really have to have that feeling of sort of controlling a punch and dealing with a punch, the way you do is you do it off of, you know, he shoots a shot here, which you take this way, and then strike. Okay. Now, what I need to point out something is right here. If I'm on the inside line of a punch, I caught a punch, I'm on the inside line, this is what I have to worry about, right? I have to worry about this hand. So in order for me to keep that hand from coming in, I need to get this elbow towards me. This keeps that shoulder away, so I can strike. So the emphasis becomes on this. I'm actually focusing on the pull more than the hand coming out striking. Yes, I'm going to hit him. Yes, he's going to crash into my forearm. My forearm's going to smash him really hard in the neck. But the real thing I'm interested in is pulling real hard, because that keeps that punch from coming in. However, if he had punched with this hand, and I was in relatively the same position, now what I want to do is keep this fist in the way. So what I do then is this way. Notice I'm not pulling. I'm holding it out here, so it forms a kind of obstruction. And I'm going to strike over his arm into his face. Let me show, and by the way, that's the other end of the kata. So what you have is you have this motion and this motion, which are kind of inside line, outside line. I end up inside line, so I need to control that. So I pull this to my hip. I use the first move. I end up outside line. Now I need a shield in the way, so that's where I'm going to go to this technique. And I'm going to aim here. This is on the triple worm meridian this way. And then from here, you just keep going right into the head. So that's kind of the beginning and the end of the sequences. So in the form, we have this motion, and let me start out by saying it could be an elbow strike under the right circumstances, but it's not the elbow strike that most people imagine. So most people because what do most people think? That most people go, he's throwing a punch, and I block the punch, and then I have to go like this, like that. And that's not it. However, if I work from, say, here, let's say what's happened is I was talking, he grabs my arm to suppress it so he can throw a punch at me. And I go, oh crap, like this, to get out of the way of his punch. Right? And then I step over here, and now I'm, and I kind of get myself free from him, and I'm standing behind him going, now what? Now is the time when I can go ahead and elbow strike him. So here's my elbow strike. This, by the way, is ouchi. It's the same technique from before. So it's not an elbow strike. It actually starts out with me going, okay, boom. And then after that happens, then that happens. So what looks like an elbow strike is actually a fist followed by an elbow. But only on that rare kind of situation. Okay, so there are occasions when the elbow strike becomes an elbow strike. But usually you've done something already. Guy pushes you, and you go, oh, and bring his hand down here. Now, if I want to elbow strike him, see, that becomes a punch followed by an elbow. Now, okay, that you might do it. But most of the time, we don't even interpret those as elbow strikes, but as joint manipulation. So here's one that I'm real fond of. A guy grabs your arms above the elbows. Now, it's normally done this way. It's against a two-hand grab, but so you can see it, I'm going to just do it off of a one-side grab. So go ahead and let go with this arm. Okay. So the first thing the kata says is I'm supposed to get like this. So get on this sort of 45 angle. So it doesn't mean that I'm, it means I got to get myself over here. And I swing my arm through and just kind of tap. So this is the form position. Now what I've done is I've created a little bend right here. And I'm going to capitalize on that bend. The hand that is the elbow strike, I'm going to make a fist. And I make the fist on his hand. I'm specifically going to dig in a point right in the kind of the middle of the second metatarsal, which is called Hegu, or large intestine 4. And my forearm kind of rakes across the back of his arm. I'm sort of on a triple warmer spot on the back of his arm. But here's the big thing. If you give me some resistance, what happens is he can resist until that happens. Until I make that contact with my other arm. This is one of those kind of things that has to do with the energetic qualities of the human body. So it's real important that when you do this initial motion, what really matters is this touch. That's what brings him down. Now I'm in my horse stance, and the next thing I'm supposed to do is stack hands at hips. So watch me do this, and watch this very carefully. Notice how I'm slightly rolling. Now what I've done is I've changed the angle of his arm. And then what I do is I pull it back to my hip. Okay? So he's grabbed me here, and now you can grab with both hands. So this is, remember, this is a two-hand grab. So I come 45, I come up like this, here's the touch. Now I roll this way, and then bring that to my hip. Okay, so it's that to the hip thing that hurts so much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this motion, what looks like elbow striking, becomes joint manipulation. Here's another interpretation that goes along. It's pretty much a similar idea. You've been grabbed by the wrists. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, now this is the elbow striking elbow, and this is going to be the palm elbow. So what I've done here is that's all I'm doing, right? And I just work that 45 angle. Then from here, stack hands means his head. And what I'm doing is I'm going to grab him this way. This is right under his eyebrow ridge. And I just kind of lift like I'm trying to lift up into his skull. Just to be mean. And then another thing you can do is right here. So what I've done is I'm grabbing his wrist, I bend him back, and I'm just going to rotate, and I pull him into the elbow shot to the head. Now stack hands becomes, see, that's his fingers. And then from here, I strike. So it's just, it's pretty straightforward stuff. The key thing, though, you know, when you look at some of this, I'm not going very fast. But here's the key. When somebody grabs, you go, oh, now I've got all the time in the world. The thing is that what you do first, you have to be able to do quickly. That has to be fast. Then you can take time for the rest of it. That's why I can slow down in the middle sometimes and talk, because the first thing you want to do always is something that's going to make sure that the fight is yours. Because what I don't want to do, he's younger than me, he's stronger than me, I don't want to go toe-to-toe with him. So whatever I do first, I want to make sure that first I give myself the breathing space I need to survive the fight. So, you know, if he grabs me with a two-hand lapel grab and I go like this, as the first move of the form, but look what I just did. What I did was I tied him up. His hands are trapped, and I'm now in a position to work and to manipulate and to strike and to do all of these things. But it began with, the first thing I did was very natural, quick reaction, not sophisticated, but enough to give me a lot of control over him. So one of the things I'm supposed to do this, and then get umbarai, right? This motion represents kicking into the inside of his leg. Basically what you do is you kick yourself on the inside of the leg to represent kicking him on the inside of the leg. And everyone in Okinawa knows this, and nobody in the United States seems to know it. No one ever told us in the United States. It was always you're ducking, and somebody's trying to foot sweep you, and you're pulling your leg out of the way. But this is actually that you're kicking the inside of the leg. In fact, the name of the kata, Naihanchi, may come from an old Chinese form called Nohanji, which means inside the knee. So you kick inside the knee. So a couple ways that I can interpret these movements. First thing, anytime I'm grabbed, I need to deal with the range problems. So I can kick inside the leg, and this allows me to, the time I need to do the joint technique and set myself up, for example, for that. So what I did was, I just started out, I just, bam, kicked there. And then I could lock him in, control him. You can do an arm bar, or you can just pull him to your hip. It really doesn't matter, because you're getting ready to smack the guy. If he grabbed with the other hand, it's going to be the same basic principle. I'm just coming the other direction, still kicking the same way. Now when I come down with my strike, I'm actually going to use my elbow right here. See how that folds him down here? Boom. Just kind of tapping on the back. Now at this point, he's not in a good position. The next move is for me to do this. His head's over there. That means I have to move relative to his head. Now you don't have to just stand there and do the form. So you're not required to just, hey, he's no longer there anymore. It's okay to come over here like this and make an adjustment so that you can go on to the next technique. It's also okay to do something else entirely different, like pick your knee up and drive it into his chest. If I've been grabbed here, if I'm going to take my thumb and I come right in here on the side of his nose. I'm using a point called bitong, which is right on the edge of the bone of the nose. It's right there. To rotate his head around. Bring him right here. Now all I've done is, all of this is just getting ready for what I'm going to do next, which is this palm shot. Okay, this is just this motion right here. I'm just going to put this right in the back of his head on the gallbladder meridian, right there. Boom, this way. You can also, if you want, come up underneath the eyebrows as you're doing this technique. All right, so the movement, this cross step here, and you go like this, like this, like this, like this. So let's start with people go, oh, you'd never fight like this. Well, you would if you knew what you're doing. So a guy grabs. Again, this is my problem. When I'm grabbed here, this is not my problem. My problem is his other hand. So one of the things I can do is I take this point, this lung 5 point, and I take my forearm, and I don't just hit it, but I grind it. So I'm going to just kind of use this hand as my anchor this way. And notice how I step sideways. I step into my horse stance. Whoa! Notice how his head comes down. Well, the next thing I'm supposed to do is this. Now, I'm not supposed to wait. Okay? It's supposed to go, as his head comes down, my hand strikes up. Okay? So that's a kind of important thing to have that sense. That I'm not waiting for one. Oh, no, he's not in the right place. It's as his head's coming down, he meets my hand rising. So this motion, just this much, is in and of itself a really useful action. So I go one, bang, here. Now the next action is just to strike. And what I'm going to do is aim, this is called the inguinal crease, just aim right in there. See how that brings his head down? I go 1, 2. Now at this point, because of our relationship, I've now stopped with that part of the kata, and I go to someplace else. And where I'm going to go next is I'm going to go to this strike. So I've positioned his head, so I'm just going to put this hand here for control, take this hand, and lace it up inside here, or up under his ear. I went 1, 2, and then I skipped. I skipped this, 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 and this, and went to that. Okay, so I went from here to here. Again, this is how you make kata useful. You use each piece according to the relationships you create with your opponent. So a guy grabs me here. He's got that thread up. I go, oh crap. Now, there's a couple variations on how I can deal with this. One way is I can just start by hitting him low, especially if I see this thing coming and I just got enough warning to punch down here. The anticipation. Punch into the inguinal crease. Now, notice how his head has come down. So from here, I'm going to strike up. Okay? And I can strike with this hand or switch to this hand. Notice that when I switched hands, I also angled my body slightly. I bring this hand up, I strike up, and then down. Up, and then down. If a person grabs you with 2 hands, then it becomes really easy because you bring your hands together this way to collapse his forearms. This hand controls. You strike up, and then down. You can also strike 1, 2, 3. In other words, you can get fist, elbow, fist. And then there's one other, and here's a really helpful variation. When Tatsuo learned this form, he learned it from Motobu. Choki Motobu he liked to go this vertical line a lot. So where a lot of other people would do, they'd go here, or they'd go here, back, this way. Motobu would go like this, and he'd keep this very, very straight. That was kind of his thing. And then he'd do the next move of the form, he'd strike, and he'd do this. And he'd keep his arm really, really straight up and down. So he had this thing about this sort of vertical line. So Tatsuo learned that from him. So in Tatsuo's version, you get this straight vertical line strike. And probably part of what that's about is what I call an oops technique. And I think there are 2 oops techniques. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm being attacked in this kata. So one would be here, and the other one is after I do this motion and I come back. So it kind of works this way. Guy grabs me, and he throws a punch, and I go, oh! See when my hand is just straight up and down. And then right away, just strike. Okay, just bang. The other place the oops comes in, it's the same basic idea. He goes to strike, I go, ah! And now what I'm going to do is, this is where the Ishinru fist is really important, because your thumb is out of the way. Use the flat part of your thumb, and anticipation is everything. Tap across the nose diagonally this way. And you don't really have to hit that hard. You just rake across the nose. You can hit also anywhere in the head. You can actually hit really hard with this, which is surprising because you don't think of this as being a solid shot. But you can get a good wrap. I mean, that's how we knock on a door. So you basically knock on the door. So I usually go for the nose. And if not the nose, you want to go under the ear up in here in what's called triple warmer 17. So you get a nice body reaction with that. But the idea is initially you go, ah. And so I have these two. I have one, ah, strike down. Two, ah, strike across. Okay, so this kind of motion here, which can be either hand, is a lot of times this person will grab this way and somebody throws a punch and get the punch out of the way. What you're doing, you notice I did two things. One is, well, about three things. One is I went like this to avoid getting hit. And I tried to engage. This hand comes over the top. As this punch comes in, I'm getting as much as I can in the way, but I'm intentionally trying to cross this over to him. I'm interested in particular with the large intestine meridian, so I'm controlling there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this motion here as an indication I'm supposed to kick him there. At the same time, I'm going to tap him up under the ear, so it's going to be that way. You know, both the strike under the ear and the kick have a very similar result, which is they cause the body to collapse to the ground. So it's a very, very simple way of managing. So what looks like the form as 1, 2 in application becomes 1, same time. Okay. So the cousin technique it's basically the same technique on the other side. You go this way, and when you come onto this side, tatsuo, in this version of the form, you actually bring your hand back to your hip. So bringing your hand back to your hip tells you something. One of the things it tells you is that you're bringing your hand back to your hip. I mean, you're trying to control his body. And you can do it that way or this way, which is a really easy way to control somebody. Just bring it back to your hip. 45 degrees is the angle and direction to catch this pressure point under the ear, triple warmer 17. It's actually 45 back to front. So what I need to have happen is I need to get on the 45-degree angle so that I can go 45 degrees this way. Okay? Now, I also want to just put a little bit of elbow pressure on on the center of his bicep, which is the pericardium meridian. Pericardium meridian, triple warmer meridian are related meridians. They're called husband and wife. It's yin and yang. So I get a little bit of this, which is just extra, and then 45 that way to go through. Okay. Now with Chris, he's more of a pressure than a hit guy, but you see the reaction that we get. Boom. You see how this body responds. And this is just a really light shot. Okay, 1, 2. You get this this motion. So what I like to do with that is maybe somebody's grabbing with 2 hands, and what I'm going to do is first I just want to bring their head close, and now I'm going to grab the back of his head, and I'm going to take a knuckle. And I'm actually going to use my Isshinryu fist, but I'm starting with this one. I'm going to put it right up under his cheek, and not up, but actually back. So I'm going on a small intestine point. And I start with this, but I'm going to quickly roll over to my thumb, because I'm going to twist him around this way. And so now what I've got is the point of my Isshinryu thumb tucked in front of the masseter muscle, and then I just squeeze that for all it's worth. So you're creating this very painful motion. And this is, again, this is how we start with this sort of not too cruel thing. But then if you need to amp it up, from here you give him a little push this way, and then you strike. Boom. And then if he's still standing for any reason, or if you want to hit him again, boom. So that becomes, that's this motion. 1, 2. But another thing is that sometimes when a person grabs, see, a lot of the Okinawans they're not very tall, and they found out that some of the foreigners were much bigger. So, where somebody my size, I might catch that wrist point and get a good reaction pretty quickly. With some people, not so much. Wrist doesn't react very well, or they're too big and my hands don't quite work. So there's a method of hooking. What I'm doing is I'm hooking my fingers very tightly like this. I'm hooking in and catching the pulse point, which is lung 8. I'm also going to put my index finger up here on lung 9, so I'm kind of doubling. So I take lung 9, I push lung 9 sort of diagonally down and across, and then I come lung 8 and I do that. With him I can get that reaction, but if you can't, you take your hand and you press this way into your own fingers and kind of drive your own fingers in. And as you do it, because this is the threat hand, you step this way. So the motion becomes step, the hands come up and you step over. So he's going to punch, I go like this, whoa. And then from here, I'm going to do this movement, get on Barai. But in fact, I'm not going to try to hit with my fist. I'm smashing with my forearm. And that stretches his head to this position so that now it's very easy for me to punch because his neck is all stretched out. So it's real simple for me to just fire a punch in there. One of the key rules in pressure points anyway is stretch it before you hit it. So he grabs me here. He goes to punch. I lock on his wrist. And I might even end up blocking that first punch. And he goes to punch me again. I go, oh, crap. He pulls that arm back. And here. This is where I lock onto this. And then strike to stretch this out. And then boom, punch. And notice I'm actually hitting with the little knuckle, not my big knuckles, just with the little knuckle right there. Because you don't have to be hitting always with these two. You can hit with this little one. It's surprising what you can do, especially if the neck is stretched out. What I'm going to do is go to this section right here. This is one where the usual application that I see is somebody, a guy punches and you block. He punches again and you block and spearhand him. What happens is, if I stand over here, the guy grabs with one hand and he's punching with that hand, so I go like this to suppress his punch. Notice the position of my foot. I've come up and locked against his leg. Now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to strike. And I can chop, strike, or I can palm up here into his forehead. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to palm the forehead a little bit. See how my hand has gone behind him? Now I'm going to come back, catching underneath his skull, and at the same time I'm going to do a yin palm, and I'm going to catch him that way. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the motion becomes, this is where the work is being, it's the hands passing each other. Punch comes in, I suppress the punch, control it, strike up in here. This hand is going to come back this way, catching right here. Or if you want, you can also catch right here. The yin palm comes in on the edge of his rib cage. I'm kind of going for the floating ribs, which is a liver point. So I'm using a gallbladder point and a liver point together, that way. One of the characteristics of the Kata Won-Soo is that it assumes that there's a buddy. So here we have the buddy problem. Now when there's a buddy, the buddy will be standing either to the right or to the left. So we assume that here's the buddy, and I'm dealing with him. So we do the same thing. He's grabbed me. He throws a punch. I suppress the punch. I strike. I come in here, folds him over like this. There's his buddy. So his buddy's going to come after me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to grab him and pull him tight into me. And as the buddy comes, I use him as a shield and step, boom, this way, and just smack that guy, whack, in the face. And now I've got this guy, so I get to hit him. 1, 2. There's the buddy. There's my problem. Guy throws a punch. I suppress the punch, strike, come back here and down here, fold him over. There's the buddy. Now, and this buddy doesn't know whether to grab me or grab his friend, but because he's in the way. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing hair, pulling in tight to my body, and I use him as a shield, basically. And now from here, I'm going to step, and first I hit him with this hand, then with that hand. So the motion that I've done is I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dealing with 2 people. Now later on in the form, same problem. How do we deal with 2 people? So I'm actually going to jump ahead to that place and kind of get there now. Same kind of situation. I got 2 guys. Guy number 1, guy number 2. All right? I go, oh crap. So what I'm going to do, and I'm in very, very close. And maybe guy number 1 is going to put his hands on me. I'm starting to control his hands with my fingers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take guy number 1 and put him into guy number 2 by bumping inside his leg. He goes into guy number 2. Guy number 2 catches his friend. I hit guy number 2 first. Then I hit guy number 1. So the movement of the form becomes guy number 2, guy number 1. So guy number 1 got this in the inside of his leg. Guy number 2, catching his friend, gets this. Then guy number 1, looking up, going, what just happened, gets that. So the idea is that this motion is designed for, and you do it both ways, because you don't know if the guy standing is the buddy on the right or on the left. So if the buddy's on the left, again, same thing. I come in, okay, great, boom, right here, boom, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him. You hit the buddy first, then you hit the guy you're dealing with to begin with. And his reaction will always be to catch his friend. I mean, it's automatic. You know, that's a completely natural response. So because that's a natural response, the form just goes, you hit the guy doing the catching first, then hit the other guy second. So let's take care of, one of the problems, of course, is what happens when somebody grabs you from behind. So a guy reaches up, he grabs my shoulder, and he pulls with one hand. That means he's probably going to hit me with the other hand. But it might mean he's going to stab me with the other hand. Could mean that he's going to punch me in the kidney. Might mean he's going to punch me in the back of the head. I can't know. So I have to like gamble. So you gamble on what's the most likely scenario. The most likely scenario is that if he's got a knife, I'm dead, and that if he's going to punch me, he's going to hit me in the head. That's the most likely. So he's going to pull and do that kind of thing. Or if he has his other hand, he might be pulling that way. So now, what I'm going to do is not care about anything. I have to just gamble, because there's no way you can, like, well, if he grabs you and he stabs you, do this. If he grabs you, you just have to have one thing that you just do all the time. So the one thing you do is when you get grabbed is you just do this. Notice I even shut my eyes when I did it. Hand comes up this way. Oh, look, my elbow smashed across his throat. That's wonderful. Well, what if as he pulls me, there's a punch coming into my head? Oh, the punch got deflected. Oh, that's cool. Now, by the way, I'm doing this left-handed because of how he's grabbing me. In the form, it's actually the other way. So I'll come over here just to orient it so for you at the form. I actually do the forms left-handed and right-handed, so I don't really care. He pulls. I bring this up. Whatever's coming in the way. Now, in this case, it guides the same action that guides his hand away from my head also guides my hand away from his head. So I don't get a good first hit. But that's okay because and this is not controlling. This is me smacking him from 2 directions because I want to hit him from both sides. So as my hand comes back, I'm actually hitting with a palm on one side, fist on the other. But if he grabs me with the other hand, pulls me, shunk, oh, there's a chop. So I chop through, and now I come back again. And as I come back again, I can just tap. And that's just my hand coming back. Forget the hand that's going out into this. So what you're getting is this collision of forces. But what that means is anytime you grab, you just do this. And you don't worry about, you just don't worry about it. What if he's, now let's say he was trying to stab me with a knife. And he pulls me, and I turn. Well, I'm probably going to get stabbed. Nothing I can do about it. Hopefully I hit him before I die, so that when the police come, they find my body and him lying unconscious with the knife still in his hand. That's the best I can hope for under those circumstances. So you can't be sort of planning for that. What if it's a gun? I don't know. I mean, if the guy pulls, just turn. Anytime to pull, you just turn, bring that hand over, strike with that hand, and then whatever you can hit with, just hit again, pull back. You can make this very sophisticated and go, all right, I'm going to hit there on the stomach meridian, and when I come back this way, I'm going to punch again on the stomach meridian and catch a little bit of gallbladder. You can do all of that stuff, which is very good, but you can also just hit him, and that's very good too. Now, one of the kind of weird movements in the form is this kind of high-low thing. This is one of those situations, guy grabs, but he's grabbed high. So it's not comfortable for me to bring my arm over the top. So as he throws this punch to my head, I go here, striking, I'm going to strike low, groin, inside of the leg. Notice the control I have here allows me to hit inside the leg and really disrupt his balance. What I want you to see, though, is what's going on with my other hand. So I'm going to leave this out of the way, because when I come in here, I go one, see that? Boom. I'm rotating my body. So when I step, this motion, this thing hits. And this is just like before when we were talking about Ouchi, that move hits so hard. As long as you keep the bends right, you have to have a little bend here, a little bend here, here. You can't let your elbow get behind your shoulder. Same thing is true. If I want to hit high, I have to bring it up like this, but otherwise it's the same thing. And this is a really heavy, you can hit really hard with this, which you wouldn't expect. But you can hit very hard, and I'm not really doing anything. So the motion then, punch comes in, I go one, and just hit, boom, hard. And really, look at this angle. It's right on gallbladder on the back of his head. Yeah, see, I mean, that's just, I'm not even trying. It's such an easy thing to do. Okay, so one of the sort of oddball little places, people go, why would you bring your hands to your hips this way? Well, there's a couple of different reasons to do that, but here's one of them. Guy's reaching in, you catch his finger, right? See how his head came down here like this? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my hand to my hip, but my hand coming to my hip comes this way, comes in, see, that way, under his ear. So the motion to the hip is actually a strike out, and one hand is controlling, the other hand is striking. Now, when I do the kata, I'll do the first one, I kind of do that sort of motion. But then after I do this, the next one I do a motion more this way, kind of in together. And the reason for that is, I got these two guys. Shad, can you stay right there? I got these two guys. So I take this first guy into his buddy, right? His buddy catches him. So I punch his buddy. Oof. Then I punch him. Boom. Now his buddy's folded over here. I'll have to get you to move out of the way, just so that we can see this. His buddy's over here, so I step up to get towards his buddy, and I'm going to just take my knuckles like this, and I tap right under the ear. And so what I do is that much of it, but the motion is this way. So the hand's coming to the hip. This is the through motion striking into the pressure point. And there I use the under the ear point triple Warmer 17. So one of the things that you probably noticed is that stacked hands doesn't mean getting ready, hiding your weapons. It means you got something in your hands. This kata has stack hands, kick down here. It also has stack hands, kick forward. And what that means in each case is more or less the same thing. When you stack your hands, you're doing a joint manipulation technique. So you've got something in your hands. So let's say he grabs me here. I go like this. I go like this. Stack hands. Now I'm going to do kick to the side. Well, look where his body is. So here's what I do. I go 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's not a kick. There's multiple hitting. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that puts him in this sort of awkward, vulnerable position that's very, very easy to deal with. And you beat him up after that if he's still standing. Same thing then applies if I'm doing. Guy grabs me. It's like, oh, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go stack hands to my hips. I'm going to go this way because of which leg he has forward. Now I have to front kick him. Oh, wait. I can't front kick him. He's too close. I can't get a kick out. Well, yeah, you can. You just drive a knee up. Then if there's space, you go ahead and kick. But if there's not space, don't worry about it because it's just It's just a knee strike. I mean, a kick is a knee strike first. Guy grabs, I go like this. 1, 2, okay? 1, 2. So that becomes this simple motion here. Sometimes you'll see it's the same idea. 1 with a little bump that way first, and then kick to the back leg. What happens if you miss? Well, the good news is if you threw your knee into his chest and then you missed one of the kicks afterwards, you're probably okay. Last move in the form. Actually, you kick, you do this, and you do this. And what I want to do is only mess with this part. In fact, I'm going to leave out the legs. This. When your hands cross this way, coming towards you, what you're doing is your opponent has grabbed you, and you're going to strike back of his head. Now the key thing when you go after this is gallbladder 20, which I've used a lot. Keep your elbows down so that, because if I hit the back of his head comes into my head. I can't have that happening. So I keep my elbows down so that his head can't come into my head. And you just go like that. So you just think cross your arms. Now in the form, the next thing you do is separate your hands, which from here can imply just stretching them out, getting rid of him, or it can imply either hand. When you do something with both hands, it can mean either hand, so you can also do this, and then kind of finish with a chop to the side. But the key thing is that this motion right here, that strike, crossing, pulls him in tight, he's trapped, and it hurts. Last thing, that's the hand I have to worry about. So I do is I go like this, and I strike here. This is the end of the form. This way. I have to worry about that hand. See? But you start with the near one. Oh, this way. Strike. This can be with the hand or with the forearm. Either way. Again, we have this motion, right? So this can be a lot of different things. We've already covered a couple of them. But one of the things it can also be is that this can be striking with this part of this part, literally, this part of your little finger. So a guy grabs two hands, All right, what I do is I put one hand up here, and I'm just going to kind of smack. I'm just going for a little bit of effect on the back of the head. This is gallbladder meridian. But I'm taking the front part of my knuckle just up under right there. So the motion is this way. You see the body react. You see I feel his body twitch from that. Smack under the ear. Boom. Here. So it can be a very small thing. Somebody grabs you and just go boom like this, and just like that. Now let's consider one of the problems. When somebody grabs, this is where he's strong. This is the threat, is this backhand. So the question is, how do I get away from his strength, which is in his center? How do I get away from the threat? One of the ways to do that is to go 45 degrees. See, if I just move over here, I just moved out of his strength and away from the threat. So it's a very small motion, but I just got off on the angle. Now, as I do that, there's a couple things I want to do. So first, let me look at what I want to do on the lower level, which is my legs. What I want to do is because he's grabbed with this hand, that means this leg is forward, because he's powering up, loading that back hand. So I'm just going to use my cat stance to disrupt his leg. So I step 45, and as I hit my cat stance, I just use that to disrupt down here. Secondly, because this is a threat, it's natural for me to stick my hand out, to kind of as a warding gesture, because he may throw that punch. So I have my hand out here just to ward, but notice that now the position that his head is in. His head is forward, it's towards me. This hand can come up on the back side of his head, while this palm can come right here on the front of his head. And so I'm going to cross my hands this way. Okay, you okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now here's the nice thing. What you see what happens is you get a strong body reflex reaction, but there's no harm here. And that's the nice thing about pressure points, especially when we're working at this very low level, because there's no intent to hurt. And the reaction is, boom, his body gives, and then it's fine. His body, he might be a little sore tomorrow, but for the most part, this doesn't cause any harm or any damage. And it just works really effectively. It doesn't take a lot of energy. So what I've done here, to go back to the form and the technique, is I've simply gone to the 45, and I crossed my hands. Now, once I've done this, so again, I'm going to come here, boom. Let's say that he didn't go down, or I tapped him and his body kind of stayed upright. The next thing I want to do is twist. And the reason I want to twist is because what I need for him to do at this point is not be able to regain his posture. Because what he's going to want to do is because I've pushed him over this way, he's going to want to try to re-angle himself towards me. So I need to prevent him from re-angling himself towards me. So I twist his head this way. See how this continues to keep him twisted up, skeletally speaking. And then, once I've twisted his head, I just give it a little push to give me some room, and then strike. So what I've done is I've gone 1, 2, 3, okay? So it's just a way of making sure that once I've done this initial motion, this initial action of coming here, bang, here, keep him off balance, create a little space, strike. And then once you strike, you slide in, keep beating on him. I mean, there's that whole keep beating on him thing. Speaking of continuing to beat on people, if a guy's reaching for me, one of the things I can do, I go, oh crap, that's my problem hand. So I can try to cover here, but another thing I can do is I can slide in this way with a real short punch, and what I'm trying to do is get away from this shot. Boom, here. Now the next thing I want to do, this causes his body to fold slightly. So from here I just want to tap. So what looks like this, like I'm doing maybe blocking his punch, and then there's another guy on this side kicking. Yeah, come on over here. This is what people always teach. I don't know why they teach this stuff. Like that would ever happen. Okay? He grabs me. I go, oh crap. Boom. See, folded him over. Now, one hand's going to come up, one hand's going to go down. Then if I do stomach and stomach that way, or if I do triple warmer and like that, you understand? These are very slight motions. But when I do this, what I'm trying to do is go through his head. So this action it's really about this, where my hands pass. It's not about the rest of that stuff. Guy grabs two hands, maybe he's choking. Guy's choking, what you do is you cross, you squeeze them together, and pull him down. Now look at where his chest is, see where his balance is? So that means if I jump up and knee him, boom, I can hit him really, really hard. Right in the chest. And if my foot kicks him, also, that's just bonus. So it's, guy's choking, you squeeze it, drop it, you come up here. The kick is only secondary. We don't really care much about the kick. Now look at the position he's in. So as I step down from that kick, this is where I'm going to just tap this guy in the face. So what looks like a X block now in this case is I'm actually going to, see, I kind of scissored, and what I do is I scissored across the front of his jaw, right there. Now another thing that sometimes happens, the guy grabs like this. If I cross my arms this way, see, I get nice pressure. Now I'm going to use his little finger a little bit, bring him around out of my way. Look at this. He's now exposed here. So I come in punching. Now, what I did in the form looks like this, with this big motion, but it doesn't mean I do that big motion. What it means is that when I catch him this way, I move him as if I want to turn him around over there. I don't care if he gets there. I do this, oh, he didn't get there. Well, I didn't really want him there anyway. So what I want is this vulnerable position so that I can come in and hit. I can hit into the inguinal crease, this place where the thigh meets the body. You can tap here at the same time. You can hit into the stomach. But I really like this as a great target. Inguinal crease, just kind of plast that in here. And that's enough. That's enough because this motion right here is enough to put somebody on the ground. I mean, if you're just really plastering them. You can, when you do it, by the way, you can do that and even that to kind of get yourself a little more penetration, or go with one of these or one of these to just try to get a little more in there. When a guy grabs with two hands, especially a big guy, I go, oh crap, what am I going to do with him? One of the things you can do with a guy is you put your hands up here and you squeeze this way, and the key is like this. So I squeeze. Now notice how his hands are trapped and I've got his head. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull him into myself and just send him on his way. So he grabs me and I go, what? And this is just me throwing, this is just getting rid of somebody. It's this motion here. The next thing in the form, the next movement is this way. And what that means is I got this guy that I'm dealing with. And again, maybe this is one of those cases where he pulls my arm down with this hand and he's going to punch me with that hand. So what I need to do is I need to go, oh crap. So I went, oh crap. And now I'm going to do this motion right here. See? So, and that was the nice version. By the way, this is how you do it nicely. What you do nicely is you hit with your forearm kind of across the upper shoulder. The technique itself, not so nice. The technique itself is, so guys pulled my arm down and he's going to punch. So I have to get out of the way of that punch. It's like, oh crap. There. Now, if I can, I'd like to get a little large intestine here, but mostly I just, you go 1, 2. The reason is when a person grabs with two hands, we go back to this two-hand grab, you can just step into them and strike down in the center of their collarbone. And you can actually hit, the collarbone will break if you hit it hard enough, so you can just hit it. But there's a good pressure point there, which is the stomach meridian. So if you hit in the center, you get a nice reaction just from that kind of emotion. And that was just down on the chest. You can also, if you choose instead, you can come into near the hollow of the shoulder, which is a lung point, and you can hit in there and just, and see how his body sort of caves in after that? So now from here, so it's, the form becomes 1, 2, and then like this. So if I've stripped here and folded him out, then the next thing I do is this double strike down. And you strike into whatever's available to you. It can be his leg, it can be his body, his groin, whatever. And because I want to bring his head down for, you see what I'm doing? I'm going 1, 2, 3. So I use a series of motions to bring him down so I can turn and take his head. Guy grabs. There's his head. Grab the top of his head. Now he'd have a top knot here, traditionally speaking. Grab the top of his head. And when I do it, I want to make a little circle like this. And I grab his jaw. This is, okay, me getting, it's kata goes like this, and then like this, and then down here. So I grab the top of his head, grab the bottom of his jaw. I'm going to turn him this way. Now, in the form, this is one of those places where the kata intentionally hides what it's doing. In the form, it has me stepping this way. But in application, you actually pivot on the other leg. So sometimes they'll hide that stuff. Here's why. If he gives me some resistance, I can pull him down. I can pull him down, okay, resist. Right? But watch what happens when instead of stepping back, I do the same. I'm doing everything the same, but I'm just going to step forward. See how fast he came down? And notice how he spun around on himself? So he's all twisted up. I mean, it's just much quicker. You heard the sound. I actually had to do one of these so that I wouldn't hurt, he wouldn't lose hair. I wouldn't end up with a bunch of hair in my hand, stuff like that. It's when you step forward, this is the small circle principle. When you step forward, you actually you close the pivot. So the technique in the form is grab the head, but in the reality of application, you pivot the other way to take him down. And I wanted to mention that because we have this place in this form where you do this 360-degree spin, and people see that and they go, well, what are you doing there? Well, it's, again, the same kind of thing. What the form does is it gives you information about the technique, but it doesn't show you what you're doing. What happens is, I got a guy, maybe he's got his guard up, and I'm going to engage his guard, and I'm going to strike on the triple warmer meridian to try to bring him down. I want to put him in an arm bar, so it means this position here. So I'm going to take the outside of his leg, which is the gallbladder meridian point, and what I want to do is I want to blast him on the outside of his leg really hard, as if I'm going to go in a full circle. Now, if you know anything about Muay Thai people, when they fight, they go, boom, they kick that leg, and then they're back in punching. But when they practice that, they go and spin all the way around. The reason they spin all the way around is because you want to have the full commitment into the technique. That's what's going on here. The spin all the way around doesn't mean I'm going to spin all the way around. I mean, not exactly. It means that's the kind of energy I want. What's actually going to happen is, when I collide with him, his body will absorb my motion. So then I have to double step. So what in the form looks like this, in the actual application on a body goes this way. So you're going to see he's got his guard up. So I can catch him here. I'm going to come here. Boom. Okay, now again, see how he's all twisted up? And I've got him in this armbar position. From here I can attack or do whatever I want. He's all wrapped in on himself. So I had to double, like, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah, that one hurt. Boom, boom. Okay, so the footwork in application doesn't always match the footwork in the form, and because what's happening is the form contains more than just what you do. It also gives you information. It's what's called a tell. It explains something. Sometimes it hides something. The guy grabs me like this, I go like this. It's a pressure point up here. I don't use this one a lot, but it's good to know. It's just above the elbow. It's called triple warmer 11. And you rub it, and that's what you get for a reaction. Now, I can make this worse if I do what's called two-way action. In fact, come on over here. Two-way action is where I equal pulling with pushing. So not only do I rub, but I do that. Now you see what's happening to his knees, how he's starting to come down onto his knees real close to my feet. So what I want to do as I'm doing this is, as I make this motion and do my two-way action, I kind of need to get my feet out of the way. So I go like this. Whoa! That gets my feet out of the way. But notice where his body is. My shot, my knee comes up either into the side of his ribs or into his armpit, and my foot may not hit anything. It may hit his head from underneath. It may hit nothing. I don't really care because I get the knee shot. But what I just did was I did this. Now somebody asked me once in a test, why is your hand here? And their explanation for it, that's the big masters, your hand is here to protect your stomach against a round kick. No. You see, my hand is here because I'm going at this point. If instead I wanted to hit a point a little higher up on his arm, then I'd pull my hand to my hip. That's why my hand is here. Okay, so boom, bam, bang. And the next thing I do, the motion, I do it this way, because what that means is I'm going to go up and down here. This is especially if for any reason, you got to understand the great thing about kata is that it knows what's supposed to happen. This is what's supposed to happen. He goes down, and I knee him, and the fight's over. Here's what sometimes happens. He goes down, but only part way. And I go to knee him, and maybe miss, but I end up kicking him. So that's okay. And then here's what sometimes happens. I go like this. He fights me. Nothing happens. And I go, oh, great. Now what do I do? Because now we're fighting for an armbar. Then I kick him here in the leg, and his head ends up here. So I go and strike. And I go right after his head. I go head hunting. So just because the sequence is 1, 2, 3 doesn't mean that that's going to happen. It means I'm trying this and this. I may get this and this. I may get, you understand the form kind of knows that you can screw up, or that it might not work right, or that you didn't have the right angle, you missed the pressure point, or this guy just he broke his elbow once, and so now it doesn't work anymore, so it doesn't feel that. So you have all of these different kinds of relationships that the form already knows. And the key thing then is that when you're doing an application to a form, don't be committed to one outcome. Even though the form, if the move is done right, it's got a very consistent kind of outcome. You sort of know, hit him here, his body's going to react like this. Do this, his body's going to do that. But if I can just kind of take a step back and not worry about what if it doesn't work perfectly, I'll be okay, because the form sort of anticipates all of those problems. There's this sequence right here, 1, and then you turn 360 degrees. And what you have to do with certain kinds of movements like that is you kind of pick them in a different spot. You don't take them from the beginning, you take them from the middle. Shan. So sometimes a person will they'll grab your shoulders with both hands, and they'll start pulling you. Right? They're pulling your back. So what you need to do then is you need to step in this way. Now the big heavy hits, and it can go either direction. But the idea is that as you get pulled back, you want to step outside this way, and then turn your hip and drop your elbow. Okay? So all I'm doing is this. It's just turn and do this. And it's just a very simple throw. But I want you to see that because people kind of wonder, well, why are you turning around 360 degrees? No, what you're actually doing is you're doing the form. You're going through this kind of motion, which is this kind of inside-outside technique. And then you do. So if I was going to break it down, like stop between applications, what I'd actually do is I go 1. Okay? Because it just represents you're being pulled from behind, and that's what you do. This is very similar, by the way, in concept to what was in it. This is a different kata, so it treats the problem differently. But in the other kata, pull from behind was you do this. Now in this kata, the idea is pull from behind. It's almost the same thing, but now I step a little deeper so I get my leg in the way, and I can use it as a throwing technique. So this is, again, and not every move is for killing. This is one of those things that always throws people, movements like this. And there's a couple of reasons for movements like this. One reason for a movement like this is what you're doing to his legs. So forget what's happening upstairs. Guy grabs. So if he grabs me with this hand, that means that leg is forward. So what I do is I step in. And there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to do this one way. I'm going to put my heel on his toes. And then I hit in my low cross stance like this. And in the kata, I'm doing everything on a 45 degrees. So there's my 45-degree angle. And I just hit my low cross stance. And that's what happens to his body. You can also do that without stepping on his foot by hooking behind his foot this way. And then, again, to do this slowly and nicely is a little tricky. But I do that. Okay? But of course, when you do it, I mean, the feeling is here. It's just, you just kind of twist in around his leg. You just kind of twist around his leg so your knees plow into him and you just knock him over. While you're doing that, your hands are hitting this way. Okay, so when both hands come up, in this application is really this hand that's doing the work. So the other hand isn't really doing anything. This guy's grabbing, so this is just a control hand. We're not really doing anything here, it's here. So you get this hit and this up hit at the same time. There's one other reason to do a a stance like this. And it's one of those sort of odd features of the way the body works. Stances have qualities to them. So if I'm in a stance like this, what I've done is the quality of the stance is considered water. So if I have made the fire meridians vulnerable, then I can put water on them. So let me just kind of give you a sense of how that works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of pressure right here on the back of his arm. That's triple warmer. So what I'm doing is I'm opening up his triple warmer meridian, and I would hit his triple warmer meridian this way, okay? Then we hit the water stance. See, bigger reaction. Now let me show you another way in which that works. Again, using this kind of a stance. This is a little bit odd, but very strange. Here I'm going to use Chris. Now I just want to show you this, because this is just one of those things that will you just go, I don't understand this. When you change posture, you manipulate energy differently. So first, I'm just going to, okay, that hurts. Now, he can give me resistance. Okay? So I'm working pretty hard. Now watch this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself and get ready to drop into this stance, but when I do it, I'm going to try to just touch my legs together. So I'm not going to try to do anything with my body. I'm just going to touch my legs. Okay, so watch. Here's the pressure. Okay. We'll do that again. So you see? Pressure, 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 pressure. You see? What I'm trying to do is maintain steady pressure. See? Steady pressure, steady pressure, steady pressure. There it goes. See? Steady pressure. Okay, so this is this weird thing that it has to do with the body, that when you just touch your legs together, what you do is you bring energy up. And our understanding is that you bring energy up primarily into this hand. So even though he could resist me up to a point, I mean, obviously there are other ways I can make him win this fight, because I'm in the advantageous position. But let's see if I can do this with one hand. I'm going to see if I put myself in a place where, there we go. This is a very weak posture for me. Okay? I was very weak out there. My arm was extended, wrist strength only, but when I touched it, he broke. So that's just one of those really kind of advanced, odd little things that's helpful for you to know, that when you cross stance like that, you actually cause this little energy to kind of jump up in your body that you can use in attacking your opponent. One of the things that happens is sometimes you're in a place and people want to remove you from the place. And they do it by grabbing you by the upper arm. And then they get kind of close to you, and then they start walking you out. They're like, okay. I don't want to go, I don't want to go. So here's how you deal with that. Whoever's pressing less, turn towards them and bring your arm up like this. And then go the other way. And see how they're kissing, or they're going to ram their heads? Now, of course, they're going, oh, crap. Now, I'm in that quote-unquote double punch position. Now what I need to do is control them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand, and I'm grabbing, see how I have both guys with my left hand, and I'm going to strike here, hit here, pull to control as I knee him and kick him, and now I go the other way, but I'm going to keep control of this guy's arm. So I lock him here, strike him here, pull, knee, and if there's a kick, there'll be a kick. So what I just did was I went 1, that was me controlling the wrists, then I went 2, 3, switch to the other guy, 4, like that. Now, sometimes when like a guy grabs me, he's grabbed my hair. He's pulling me down. And there's his leg. So I can do something about this because his leg's there. So I hit him like that and then strike him like that. Now, what I did actually, that's in the form. And I know you don't see it in the form, but it's after I've gone through this motion, I put my hand here and then I do this. This told me to hit that spot. So all I did was I took the principle, hit that spot, and then do that. And I worked it off of this scenario. I'm being grabbed by the head, so I hit there, hit there. Again, you see the flinch, which is like, oh crap, I know what's coming now. Boom. 1, 2. So this is already built into the form. The form also goes on, it kicks, and then you do that thing where you drop down and punch. Why would you do that? Well, the reason you would kick, drop down, and punch is because, you know, you might be dealing with a guy here. You kick him, and you want to punch him, but he's not up here anymore. So if I want to punch him, I have to drop down where he is. It's the dropping motion that I'm going to use to put the energy into the punch. You can also use dropping motions in one other way. Let's say that this guy's reached in, I kick him here, stretch him out, watch. See, smash down on his foot with your knee, and then punch to finish. So it can be his foot, it can be his leg. If when I kick him, I come back a little bit and catch a little bit of back angle, and he's in this position, when I drop down on his knee, I'm dropping down on the inside. See that? Okay, so, and you can always tell when you're doing that in something like that in a form, because when you kneel, you'll be straight. If when you kneel, you're like this, that's something else. But if you're straight, the pressure is through the knee. That means you're pressing on it, like I was on spleen 6 on the inside of his leg. Oh, there are so many options once you get somebody on the ground like that. This, by the way, is sort of, you know, guy's on the ground. Yeah, he's on the ground. Okay, so there's his head. Instead of going for his head, go for his legs. Keep your body straight. Watch his face. I'm nice and straight. See that? Now, unless I'm straight, no pain. If I'm bent, no pain. Straight, pain, bend, no pain. So that's important. So you have to be straight from shoulder to knee if you're doing that kind of a technique. Kushanku has that kind of odd beginning thing where you bow and you do this, and then you go like this. And of course, the goofy stories about it, like parting the door of your hut and all that kind of stuff. It's just insane. And I mean, it's goofy. Plus, that's not how their doors were. So you have this really kind of strange attempt to explain things. That's right up there with Naihanchi being for fighting on the rice paddies. So what you have actually, it turns out this is traditional. I was once at a training that was being conducted by Kanazawa, who was an original student of Funakoshi and is currently the head of one of the 3 or 4 major Shotokan karate organizations. And Kanazawa was talking about the kata, Kushanku, and he, they were doing it at the beginning, and he just happened to say, just kind of out of the blue, he said, "Oh, well, when Sensei Funakoshi did this, he always did this." And we just thought it was because he was old. So we didn't do it. And I found that very amusing because this is actually technique. It's waza. It's bunkai. And here's what's going on. Guy grabs. Okay, if I strike him into the inguinal crease right here, his body bends like that. Okay, which is what the form does. The form puts the hands down and then bends just like that. It looks like he's bowing to me. And that means, you notice how his head's come down. So one of the things I can do is I can bring my hands up and strike. Or the other thing I can do is what the form shows is the form goes like this. See, you're here, and then you do this. So you show the hit and you show the reaction. So the kata models both what you're doing and the reaction. And then your hands come this way. When your hands go this way, that's 2 directions. That means either hand. Doesn't mean both hands. It means either hand. So, for example, guy's reaching, he's starting to choke me. So I hit him here, fold him over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hand this way, stretch it out like this, and I have to physically move. The kata doesn't show footwork. That's where the feet are together. When the feet are together like that, it's not showing footwork. So I move over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up, and I'm actually going for not where we've been before, gallbladder, but I'm actually trying to get up here a little bit higher on a bladder meridian point that way. Okay? So this action is about, it's telling me stuff. It's telling me a little story, but it doesn't necessarily show me all of the things I have to do. My feet face forward so that it's a way of, that's kind of code for we're not showing you the footwork. You got to kind of position yourself accordingly. But my options become, after I hit down here, you can also, by the way, hit in the center line. I like to hit off center, but you can hit center line and get the same response. And then you just stretch and turn. Some people will actually turn, will do this, basically turn this application, they'll go like this, and they'll just turn this way, they'll just pivot in place and strike and stretch. I like to step up because I like to go back to catch that point behind the head, back to front. So if I go the other way here, what I want to do is catch right there. Okay? So that becomes the first motion. I'm going to jump to these actions right here. People call them like the kamae or the ready position, ready, ready. So like you have to practice being ready? I don't think so. These are fighting. These are fighting. And there's kind of 2 versions of this for fighting. One version is this way. And so the way that works is somebody has grabbed you. Again, they're grabbing you like this. They're going to punch you in the face. There's the punch. The punch comes in. You do this, and then you do that. Okay? So it's 1, 2. And this is without really hitting anything. You see I'm just slapping them around, and it works really well. And if you want to aim, well, then you're even better off. If you want to aim, what you do is you want this to hit the top of his arm, this to hit right here on his jaw. That way, then that way. So a person grabs here, right? There's a joint lock, okay? By the way, if you look at this motion, I go like this, I go here, whoop. See? There's that strike out. So what if he grabs with both hands? I come like this, take him down, strike him out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to step forward. And as I step forward, I'm just going to control his body, keep it close, and tap up that way, and then punch that way. So the motion, this was a joint lock. bring the guy down. 1, 2. Now we have a movement like this. And let me take you through a few different pieces of what that's about. Here's what I consider the fairly obvious one. Guy's grabbing, he's throwing a punch. So as he punches, I bring this up here and that into his face this way. So, and you do it with a spinning motion. So you go, whoa, and then chop. So you can kind of see the pattern. This is fairly obvious, right? But the thing is that what a lot of people do is they go like this. And I never, that's just so far away and so pointless. He grabs me, I come up here, boom. And you see how that turned his head for me? So that I can just tap right up there behind his head with this hand. Now you can also do, what if he grabbed me here, and he's going to punch with that hand, so I do this. Up. See how I got his own arm in the way? Now when I chop, I'm going to hit here, I'm going to hit his arm, triple warmer meridian, triple warmer 12, and that's a fire point, so I want to use a water stance this way, and then I kick. Okay? So again, it's the same pattern, just following up now with the kick. There's one other really interesting variation that I've seen on this, and that's actually off of kind of this situation where this guy's grabbed, he's pulled my hand down, and he's coming up with that thing. What I do is I come this way, and I shoot past him, and then I pull my hand back. So it looks like, and the hand comes back, hooking back, and you're just trying to catch right up under the ear. So let's say a guy grabs me, my wrists, and I go 1. See this right here? Chop, right? So 1 here. Oh, that leg's in the way. Okay, and he falls down. Up. Wait. Since he's got, see the leg? Tap. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this motion. Okay. So this is called Nihonage, which is called the two-direction throw. Nihonage. So you come here. With the kick, there's the leg, so you kick it. Now in the form, it shows me standing up to punch, but that doesn't mean standing up to punch. You punch whatever's there wherever you are. Hit him, kick him, step right here into the hole. Oh, you felt that, didn't you?
Yes.
So, very simple throwing technique. This is, by the way, is a good one for, any level, good brown belt level technique. This is the motion here. Drop right into the circle, pull down like that. Punch. When Isshinryu was sort of being formulated, Tatsuo was dealing with a problem, which is how do you fight against big guys? He was average for an Okinawan. His teacher, Kion, was small for an Okinawan. So Kion already had been thinking, how do you deal with fighting against big guys? There's reason to believe, despite the mythology about Tatsuo Shimabuku hiding on Okinawa to avoid being drafted into the army, and then teaching Japanese military personnel in exchange for his not being drafted into the army. We actually know he was in the Philippines at the beginning of World War II, where he was, the official story is, he was an entertainer for the troops. Can you imagine, USO guy or something. But what we actually believe and have reason to think is that he was teaching Japanese military how to fight empty-handed. He was teaching hand-to-hand combat, which makes sense because later on during World War, or during the Vietnam War era in the 60s, he was teaching American Marines how to fight. The problem that the little guy has against a big guy is that he grabs me and I'm going, okay, what I want to do is my pressure point technique. I'm going to hit him on lung 5, hit him on the head. But if he's bigger than me, I may not get the result I want. So what I have to do is I have to use all of my body mass. So the way that works is you basically, you can jump up in the air to do this, or you can just drop down. I'm going to actually do the whole, you go, boom, and see, I go down, my body weight carries through the body reaction to the pressure point hit. Now I strike, and from here, I punch. So the punch is right from there. It's not stand up and punch. It's right from there. However, the reality when you're little is that you go, ah, cool, and you get a nice reaction, but you're not kneeling down. So you punch from the standing position. So what the form does is the form shows you to drop and do this motion. And then, we stand up and we punch. But we don't mean drop and then stand up. We mean do this, punch. The energy of dropping all the way to the ground is what you're going for, but you might not end up there, especially if you're doing it against some guys really big. So wherever you are, punch there. So again, this is one of those places where the form is telling you something, it's giving you information and trying to describe to you what you're supposed to be doing. It's very rare that you would duck. Ducking, strange thing to do. There's a sequence in the kata where you jump down like this. And this is a very odd thing to do. But you might if your opponent was much bigger than you. And so what you do, you got this big opponent coming for you upstairs, maybe throwing some punches or something. And what you want to do is get away from this. But this is, unfortunately, we're too close to the same size for this to really be good. This is more of a small person's tactic against a big person's tactic. But the method is you put your foot here, and you kneel down right here. And then you take this hand, and you punch inside the leg, and after you punch, you elbow. And it's a real easy way to take down a much larger opponent for somebody who's smaller, but it's one of those odd, rare times that you would actually duck. And I wouldn't do it because my head's too high. If I was really kind of short, this would make a lot of sense. Get down here, boom, like this, because then you're way underneath all the action. But it's one of the reasons you have these motions. Now here's how someone like my size would use the sequence, because the sequence goes kick and then drop. One of the things that I might do is I might work it off of a grab here. What I do is I come in this way and I start to lock him up and I kick, and as he falls from my kick, then I come forward. Okay? So I'm using the dropping of my energy and the cranking of the body to control him on the way down. Okay? Oh, all right, sure, whatever. I don't really care. So this is my elbow strike. So I kick him, boom. So you see how that works? Did you catch that? So what I'm doing is I'm using a combination of my dropping of this thing, which is now a joint technique, and my posture as a way of attacking my opponent, successively putting him in a vulnerable position. There's a category of technique, a throwing technique, which you see sometimes. There's a couple ways to do it. Guys coming in with something, you go here, this way, and then you come up this way. Okay? And you sort of wheel them around. So it goes 1, okay? And if you come the other way this way, it goes like this. That's what you're doing here. That's what that is. So as the punch comes in, you come in, whoa! So the idea is you spin the guy around. And if he splays out like that, then he's on the ground, you can just jump on him. If he stays a little tighter right here, see where his head is? Up against my body. So this becomes strike into that vulnerable head. So the sequence of the form will exactly match what I just did. See? You come in, you do these wrapping motions. Wrapping motions. See? Wrapping motions. The next part of the form, you have the sequence 1, this thing. People go, what are you doing there? This is a great place where the form tells a story. This means equal. It means what I do with my hand and my leg, equal energy. So here's how it goes. Guys come in, he's maybe grabbing onto me. I'm grabbing onto him, so I grab something. maybe his hair, maybe his gi, maybe his shoulder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull. I want you to see where he ends up. See where he ended up? So the form goes, it means I do this, he ends up like this. So the form is actually telling me what happens. Now, why do you then go from here to here? Well, the reason that happens is because sometimes when you kick the guy, you kick him real hard and he turns around more. So he's going to land somewhere between here and here. That's all the form does, is it tells you when you do this, that's your outcome. So this whole so we had all these people working on this, trying to get a lot of height. How high can they go? Whew, make it look real pretty. All this stuff where they're going, ducking in the tall grass. Nah, you're just kicking him, and the form says, then that's what happens to him. All right, so guy grabs me. That's the threat. I got to get away from the threat. One of the ways to get away from the threat is I pull this hand. See, anytime I pull his elbow towards my center line, that gets me away from the threat. It helps neutralize that shoulder. I also can get away from the threat by stepping over here. I can do them both at the same time. And once I'm in this position on the 45 angle, I can hit. So in other words, what I've done is I've gone like this. This technique right here, these kind of moishi techniques. This is what's called a hand pass. Something's coming, you go, oh, this way. Lock it, you lock it to your body. So you actually have to, as you do it, you have to move in. Now, I've got him controlled. Let's go to the other hand. I've got him controlled here. This is going to be the same in Sanchin as well. But the difference is, in Sanchin, I kind of stay in an upright stance. Here, I'm going to go into this position here because it's his leg. Boom, I want to bang his leg, and then I want to hit that way. As we get towards the end of this kata, you have these kind of movements here, boom, boom, this way. This is the same as what we did in Shinto kata, which is somebody has grabbed me. When you hit, the reason for hitting this way is everyone tries to hit into the ribs. You don't. You actually hit down here on the hips. And then the reason is, you notice the stumbling. When you hit here, right on the point of the joint, you take the legs are neutralized for not very long, but just long enough, a few seconds. And the energy of the body gets stuck down, which is why I got such a big response when I did the tap upstairs after tapping down. I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't hit him down here first. So you get the form going. 1, 2, 3. It's mapping out that. Hit the point of the hip joints, bang, bang, and then whack on top. One of the things I want to observe is, boom, boom, here, here. So if you just take this part, this is a great technique. A lot of times, again, we go back to this two-hand grab. Both my wrists have been grabbed. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my hands into this cross position, but to do it, I'm going to go this way. I cross his arms, and I twist like this. And then I'm supposed to turn that way, and turn 360 degrees, which, of course, that's going to be real difficult with his hand in here, but that's okay. But the feeling is to break his fingers and his wrists. The way it's done is grab here. This way, there's a little bit of rub right there. Okay? And now I pull it into myself, and I rotate. That way you see the rotation, the pain. Okay? Now, if you think about the form, after I've turned 360 degrees in this position, then I think I'm supposed to push down, right? Push down. See, push down. You see the tremendous pressure we got on his fingers before they slip out. Now, what happens when his fingers slip out? That's when I hit him. So it's here. I go like this. I turn. Boom. Now, you're not going to get that whole spin there, okay? So the spin is talking to you about what you're doing. He grabs me. He might be pushing me back. Oh! Okay? I turn until it slips out. And then when it slips out, I just strike. Okay, you turn until it slips out, and then just hit.